Good evening and welcome to Enabling Giving in a Digital Age, an information evening led by the Church of Scotland's Stewardship team. We are delighted that over 500 folk have signed up to join us this evening. My name is Margot Robertson. I have worked as a stewardship consultant since 2007. I'm based in North Berwick in East Lothian, and I work with presbyteries in the southeast of Scotland from Fife to the eastern borders, as well as the Presbytery of England. Pauline, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pauline Wilson. I've been with the stewardship team since 2019. I cover presbyteries from Dunkeld and Meagle in the north, down through Perth, Stirling, Falkirk, Lanark, Hamilton, and then into the southwest of Scotland, and finally the Presbytery of Ayr. Fiona, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Pauline. Hi, my name's Fiona Penny and I've been with the department since 2008. I'm home-based, which is in North Aberdeenshire, and I cover the presbyteries from Dundee right to the top of the country, as well as Orkney and Shetland. Over to you, Ashley.
Ashley, we couldn't hear you, Ashley, but just to say that Ashley is based in West Lothian and does the West Coast. You'll hear a lot more from Ashley later. Anne McIntosh, the General Treasurer of the Church of Scotland, is also here, as is Leanne Thompson, one of the Deputy Treasurers. In addition, our Chief Officer, Dave Kendall, is here, and Dave will be saying a few words later, just before the Q&A. This is how we hope the next hour and a quarter will pan out. We're about to show you a presentation that we recorded earlier this week. It lasts about 40 minutes. This whole event tonight is being recorded so that you can access it later. But feel free to take screenshots as we progress through the talk. We shall also send everyone a handout of frequently asked questions. At the end of the presentation, we'll return here for a live Q&A session, so please type any questions you have as we go along into the Q&A at the bottom right of your screen. But first, we're going to begin with a few verses from Hebrews chapter 10. And it's Hebrews chapter 10, starting at verse 19. Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is his body. And since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience, and having our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. For in just a little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. And also, my righteous one will live by faith, and I take no pleasure in the one who shrinks back. But we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. And now let's pray together. Generous God, giver of life and love, you have lavished so much on us to enrich our lives. We are your disciples here. Your word has been placed on our lips and your work has been placed in our hands, so that the good news of your love may be known throughout Scotland and all over the world. Empowered by your Holy Spirit and working together with enthusiasm and commitment, we can fulfill the tasks that you have given us. Bless our gathering this evening, our talking and our listening and our reflecting. May this event be useful, informative, and relevant to our present difficult circumstances. We pray for the dear folk in our congregations whom we serve. Take our skills and knowledge, Lord, and use them for the furtherance of your kingdom in our communities. In Jesus' name, amen. And now, over to Pauline.
Thanks, Margot. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As the National Stewardship team, we are concerned with promoting a whole life of stewardship. That said, we recognise that our main focus for now is on supporting and equipping churches to take appropriate action to respond to the unexpected financial challenges we're now facing. So we're putting much of our time and energy into helping congregations be better resourced to enable committed, regular and generous financial giving among church members and supporters. I'm presuming that many of you here have similar responsibilities within your own congregations. That's why you're here. So together we all understand the challenges and the sensitivities, but we also appreciate just how important this work is at the present time. Our shared purpose is not about lining the coffers of the church as an institution, nor is it about building up reserves for a rainy day. Rather, it's to support and sustain God's mission for this time, place, and context. I was really taken with verse 24 from the Hebrews passage that Margot just shared with us a moment ago. That verse says, "Let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds." I really like this concept of us spurring one another on. We all need a little encouragement from time to time, and there's no reason why that shouldn't apply to our financial giving to God. It's good for us to be challenged and reminded that our monetary giving is an expression of our Christian faith, witness and worship. Can I take the opportunity at this point to encourage you to incorporate a time of offering in any online services of worship that you might be broadcasting? These services have provided us with a continued sense of belonging, of being together, regularly drawing larger congregations than might have been seen sitting in church on any one Sunday. Having a time of offering in these online services helps demonstrate the spiritual significance of giving back to God as a part of our worship, even when we can't be in church to place our offerings in the plate. Many congregations have indicated that income from offerings has held up quite well over the lockdown period, with church members actively seeking new routes to give. So it would seem that the physical act of giving is continuing for many. A time of offering within worship is an opportunity to acknowledge that giving and to dedicate those offerings back to God. But it also serves as a reminder, a spur perhaps, that the work of the church continues and requires to be supported. It roots the offering within the principles of Christian stewardship rather than in simple economic terms. So if you're taking down any notes, you might just note this one: make time for a time of offering. Our key aim tonight is to help you enable giving using a variety of means. Whilst standing orders remain the best and cheapest giving option, and we would encourage their use wherever possible, digital giving methods can more easily reach a wider constituency, providing safe, secure, quick and reliable options, particularly at a time when cash offerings and donations are so restricted. I think we all recognise that we may never return to using cash in the way that we once did. Contactless payment options have quickly become the norm for day-to-day transactions, and churches are just beginning to recognise the potential in having these, whether that be for offerings, special projects, donations, fundraising, or receiving payments. Whilst the team is not in the business of recommending suppliers, several do cater for church clients and in some cases offer discounts. We've tried to hone in on companies which offer the kind of services that might be most helpful to you, but there are plenty others out there in the market, so we would encourage you to do your own research to find the right solution for your context. You may be on board with all of this already and making inroads, or this whole area might be one of great intrigue and mystery. Whichever is the case, we offer tonight's webinar to spur you on in your efforts to sustain the work of your own congregation and the wider church and enable continued or even increased giving. Referring back just for a moment to Hebrews 10 and verse 24, the message paraphrase really resonates with what we're trying to do in this webinar. It says, let's see how inventive we can be in encouraging love and helping out. So, in the midst of the technical information which Fiona is about to share, keep hold of that core purpose. We're here to consider how inventive we can be to better enable people to give of their best to God, to show love, to help out, and ultimately to bring glory to God and advance God's kingdom here on earth. Fiona.
Thank you, Pauline. I'd now like to take some time to talk about the different types of digital giving, particularly online and contactless giving. Firstly, let's think about online giving. This is where a donor makes a donation to your congregation through a secure web page or giving page. The donor accesses that giving page by clicking a donate button, clicking a link, or typing the web address into the internet browser address bar. To set this up, you will need to source a provider. There are many providers, and we'll touch on those in a moment. Your chosen provider will generate a donate button, which your website administrator can add to your church's website. If you don't have a website, they will provide a link to the page, which can be sent out in an email or posted on social media. It is also possible to include the web page address in printed form, such as a newsletter, for donors to simply type into their browser. Next, you need a merchant account or payment processor to accept and process the donor's payment card and transfer the donation to the congregation's bank account. Most providers will have a step-by-step guide on how to set this up. You will need to complete an application form, usually online. Supply proof of ID, so a passport or driving licence, for one or more congregational trustees. Sometimes proof of their address, such as a utility bill, is also required. And you'll need to prove that the bank account you choose the donations to be deposited into actually belongs to the congregation. Usually a bank statement is sufficient for this. You may also be asked to provide a link to your website, if you have one, or a copy of your annual accounts. This is just about proving that you are who you say you are to protect against fraud. How long this process takes to set up really depends on the provider and can range from a week or so to several weeks. Once set up, donors access the giving page by whatever means, choose the amount they wish to donate, insert their name, email address, payment card details, gift aid information if applicable, and click Donate. Once the donation goes through, they will see a thank you page, and usually a receipt will be emailed to them. Most providers can give the donor the opportunity to gift aid their donation if they're a UK taxpayer. Some providers collect the information so that the congregation can make the claim to HMRC themselves, and some actually make the claim for you, but there's often a charge for this service. It's important to remember that although gift aid can be claimed, online donations are not eligible for the gift aid small donation scheme. If you're looking for a basic standalone giving page, then usually the only fees incurred are the transaction fees. These range from around 1.3 to 6% per transaction, depending on the contract and sometimes the type of card being used by the donor. Some providers give the donor the opportunity to add the transaction fee to their donation. In most cases, the transaction fee is deducted before the donation is paid into the congregation's bank account. As I'm sure you're aware, there are numerous providers that will help you set up an online giving page. The decision on which provider to use is one for agreement by your congregation's trustees. You need to carefully consider the cost, terms and conditions, and regulatory compliance. The relevant policies are usually always listed on the provider's website, but if not, you should ask for proof of their compliance. As Pauline explained earlier, we cannot make the decision about which provider you should use, but we can suggest some to get you started. You may wish to consider the well-known names in the industry, such as Just Giving, PayPal, Virgin Money Giving, or Charities Aid Foundation. Or you might find it helpful to use a provider who has a specialist knowledge of how churches operate to make the process a little more straightforward. 3 such providers are Data Developments, Give.net, and Donor Donations. Many congregations already make use of data developments for accounting, gift aid, and church management software and support. For those congregations, it makes sense to also use Data Development's online giving page, which links directly into their existing software package and gift aid claims process. Give.net is part of Stewardship.org, a Christian not-for-profit charity. They too process and reclaim gift aid on eligible donations, as well as providing reports which can be downloaded for accounting purposes. Many churches already make use of their financial support services. If you're not looking for such a package, but just a simple giving page, Donor Donations is a good solution. Their giving page can be standalone or integrated into your website, and can also give the donor the option to donate to different funds or projects set up by the congregation. If you're simply not in a position to set up an online giving page, there is a facility on the Church of Scotland website where donors can give to a specific congregation or to general church funds. Moving on now to QR codes. A quick response, or QR code, is a unique image code of small black and white squares, and is there another way of accessing a secure online giving page? They work in a similar way to a barcode. Open either the camera or code reader app on your smartphone or tablet. Hold it up to the QR code and it will automatically scan the code. A message will appear asking you to tap here to go to the online page. So tap the screen and that will be you on what is called the landing page. What the donor sees next depends on the page setup, but the process is very similar to the one I described earlier for the online giving page. Just as an example, St Andrew's Parish Church in Moffat have kindly allowed us to share a picture of their landing page. As you can see, it's personalised to them and donors have the choice of 3 set donation amounts, or they can choose their own. Now, the Minister did say anyone who wished to go ahead and actually make a donation would be very welcome to do so. QR codes have become much more common recently, especially during the last year, being used for track and trace registration, ordering a coffee, paying a restaurant bill, and so much more. A QR code can be included in printed material, emails, websites, online services, social media, in fact, just about anywhere. They're extremely versatile, but the one downside is that donors do need to have a smartphone or tablet to use them. It is, however, possible to get a web link to the landing page for those who don't have a suitable device. There are some free QR code generators around, but they won't give you the data you need to track your donations, and you'll usually need to create the mobile-friendly web page yourself, so it's best to go with a provider who will do this for you. The fees tend to vary depending on whether the provider supplies publicity material to promote the code, collects gift aid information, or actually processes and claims gift aid for you. Monthly service charges range from £0 to £20 plus VAT, with transaction fees ranging from less than 1% to around 4%. If you already have an online giving page or donate button, your provider may also be able to supply a QR code. Take payments. They have developed an attractive QR code package specifically designed for Church of Scotland congregations. This includes a unique QR code, personalised landing page, including the congregation's name and photo, as well as a pull-up advertising banner, donation boxes, QR stickers and posters. Gift aid information is collected from the donor where applicable for the congregation to then claim back from HMRC. This is who St Andrews and Moffat have their QR code package with. So, turning to contactless devices. A contactless device is a small terminal containing a card reader that allows donations to be made when it is tapped with a contactless debit or credit card up to the value of £45, or by using Apple or Android Pay on your smartphone or watch. Under normal circumstances, the device can either be static in one place or passed from person to person. Obviously, under current restrictions, all devices should be static to avoid contact. Like the online giving page, you need a merchant account or payment processor to accept and process the donation and transfer the money to the congregation's bank account. On average, it usually takes anything from 3 to 7 days for the money to reach the congregation's account. Monthly management fees range from £0 to around £35 plus VAT, with transaction fees ranging from less than 1% up to about 5%. Some terminals are standalone and some need to be connected by Bluetooth to a tablet or mobile phone. Different devices have different types of screen. You can see some examples on the slide. Regardless of the style, all give the donor the option to choose from a range of donation amounts. Some also allow the donor to choose their own amount. The amount options are preset by the treasurer or designated person and can be changed at any time. The terminal is usually held in a housing of some kind, and there are a wide variety on the market, ranging from small tabletop versions to large freestanding units. Which housing you choose depends on the terminal, where and how often it will be used, as well as the cost. Some devices have the option to customise the screen, while others have options for personalising the housing that the terminal sits in. The price range for these devices is huge, starting from around £30 for a basic device, which needs to be connected to a tablet or mobile phone, to well over £500 for a standalone device. The cost of a unit or stand, along with any personalisation, is usually over and above this. Some of the more expensive devices can also be rented. Given the multitude of suppliers and contracts available, it can sometimes be challenging to know where to begin. And each supplier's product and pricing structure varies, making it difficult to compare like for like. We have gathered information on a few providers so that we can give congregations a starting point at least. We can't go into great detail tonight, but we're more than happy to have a discussion with anyone who would like specific information or support when looking to decide which device is right for them. At the end of last year, a number of congregations in Edinburgh Presbytery started a trial involving 2 contactless devices. Half are using a PATER device from Pay a Charity, and the other half are using a Collect 10 More device through SumUp. Unfortunately, the trial started just before we went to lockdown, so is currently on hold until church buildings open again. We obviously haven't been able to assess how effective the systems are yet, although the early indications are that both have been well received by the congregations. I thought it would be worthwhile to give you some more detail on those 2 devices. The Pay a Charity PATER device uses a roaming SIM card for connectivity, can be portable, tabletop, or built into a freestanding unit, either battery or mains powered, offers a choice of set donation amounts, and has the ability to accept donations while offline. Current pricing is around £395 plus VAT for the terminal, a monthly charge of £19.95 plus VAT, with transaction fees ranging from 2.4% to 5%. The cost of the branded housing is over and above that. Just when I'm talking about PATER devices, it's worth mentioning that Data Developments also offer a PATER contactless device, which links to their accounting and gift aid software. The Collect 10 More device uses Wi-Fi or a roaming SIM card for connectivity, has a large screen, is portable or tabletop, battery powered although can be plugged into the charger, offers a choice of donation amounts and the option for donors to choose their own amount, also has a chip and pin facility but can't accept donations offline. Current pricing is around £249 plus VAT for the unit, a monthly charge ranging from £0 to £15 plus VAT, with a transaction fee of 1.69%. As well as the Collect 10 More, you might be interested to know that SumUp also partners with 3 other companies, Payas, Donor Donations and Contactless Donations, to provide a range of housings for their card reader. We are currently in discussions to hopefully secure discounts for Church of Scotland congregations from some of these providers and hope to have some news on that soon. Also, just a reminder that contactless donations are eligible for the Gift Aid Small Donation Scheme. Many of the devices also collect gift aid information, and a few actually claim the gift aid for you. That's really just a whistle-stop tour of a selection of contactless devices. The best one for your congregation really depends on where, when, and what you will use the device for, as well as the cost. Take, for example, a large, historic city centre church with lots of visitors and tourists under normal circumstances, and a range of events held throughout the year, such as weddings, concerts and guided tours. This kind of church might choose a PATER or good box device, which can be built into a top-of-the-range large stand or freestanding unit with space for attractive publicity to be featured around the unit, making it eye-catching and prominent as people enter the building. Now let's imagine a smaller church, which may not have crowds of visitors, but might hold regular coffee mornings or lunch clubs, or provide a much-needed hall space for the community to use for a range of different purposes. This congregation might opt for a sum-up device and tabletop unit from the likes of Collectin or Payas, giving a low transaction rate and monthly management fee, while still offering a very satisfactory contactless giving facility. Whether it's an online donate button, a QR code or a contactless device, all usually have an online portal to see transaction details and access reports. Just before I finish, I want to mention one other way to encourage giving, and that's text giving. This enables anyone with a mobile phone to give to the congregation by texting a keyword and donation amount. The donation is added to the donor's phone bill or deducted from their credit. Keyword information can be incorporated into social media, websites, printed material and online services. Text giving doesn't usually incur any sign-up or monthly fees, but charges in the region of 5% per donation. Some companies also charge for generating the required keyword. This method of giving can allow for gift-aid information to be collected. There are several providers, two of which are donor and the national funding schemes Donate. I hope you can see that there are various ways to enable people to give. We would encourage you to explore these further with a view to adopting a range of options to suit your members and supporters, whether they are in the building or not. Thank you for listening, and can I remind you that you can type any questions you may have into the Q&A for discussion later. And now I'd like to hand over to Ashley.
Thank you, Fiona. And hopefully there you will have heard some information about ways to enable digital giving that you think might work in your congregation, whether that be contactless devices, QR codes, online donate buttons, or a mix of all of those options. And that's absolutely fantastic. And as Pauline said at the beginning of this webinar, we are here to try and find the best, most inventive ways to enable people to give their best to God and to the church. But devices and technology cannot enable that giving by themselves. Like so many other things in the church, people and the way that we communicate are so important. And communication is no less crucial when it comes to digital giving. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a bit of a technical issue just now, and we will try and get this back up and running as soon as possible. Congregations who have already started using technology to aid giving in this way have found that it really comes into its own when it is well promoted and when people are reminded that these options to give are available. So, if your congregation, for example, decides that for the moment an online donate facility or a QR code is the best option while your services are being carried out online, then once they are established, remind people about them. You could include them in your weekly intimations if you have them before your service, or acknowledge the different ways that people give their offerings by including a prayer of thanksgiving during the time of offering for all those who support the work of the church through standing orders and the donate button. You could add the QR code to your homepage of your website or pin it to the top of your social media profiles. And once our doors are open again, soon, God willing, if your congregation decides that a contactless device is the way to go forward, then no matter the device you choose, whether it is a small portable one or a large display unit. It is important again to always communicate that it is there and it is another way to give our offerings. And this is true not only for special events such as baptisms or community services, but during every service of worship. You may be surprised at people's willingness to give when they are given the opportunity to do so in a way that suits them. You may also find that people are more willing to give when they have a fuller understanding of what they are supporting. We know that congregations all across the country have been doing and are continuing to do amazing things to support their communities and to further the kingdom at home and abroad. And it is those things that monetary offerings support. So let people know what your church is up to. Give them updates on projects that are underway and your visions for their future. Some devices that Fiona mentioned previously have functions that allow you to share your congregation's stories and images on the devices themselves. But even if the device you choose does not have this function, the same effect can be had by making a small display near your device. A display with pictures, information leaflets and plans for projects, groups and work that you are doing. This is a really exciting time in the church, and if we can share that excitement, people will support us in doing God's work. I mentioned there briefly the use of social media, and I'm sure I don't have to tell anyone the important part that this tool can play after the year our churches have had. As congregations are using Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram and even TikTok to share their mission and ministry, we urge you to continue to use these platforms to share ways that people can give to church and to remind them of the amazing work that they would be supporting. Another online service that your congregations can use to enable giving are sites such as Amazon Smile and Easy Fundraising. These platforms allow individuals to support registered charities, or in our case, our congregations, when shopping online from the comfort of their own homes at no additional cost. This involves registering with a platform which links to your online shopping. Shopping through these platforms result in a percentage contribution being made to your congregation. On Amazon Smile, these donations come from purchases you make on Amazon, and with Easy Fundraising, the donations come from purchases from a vast array of online shops and services. Although the percentages of donations are usually small, ranging from 0.5% to 5% of a person's overall purchase, these amounts quickly add up, and as a user of both of these sites myself, I can attest to how easy they are to both use. But despite all of the changes and challenges that our congregations have had to face over the past year, there are still aspects of our finance system which have not changed. As mentioned earlier this evening, standing orders remain the best and cheapest giving option, and congregations who have most of their regular givers signed up to standing orders have reported a more stable financial position throughout the lockdown period with this regular source income. It is important to always encourage and allow people the opportunity to create their standing order. So you may wish to have contact details for who to get in touch with and how to set this up, in the same way that you would promote any new forms of digital giving. Another great scheme to try and take full advantage of is the Gift Aid and Gift Aid Small Donation Scheme. This can see your congregation reclaiming an extra 25 pence per pound donated if the donor is a UK taxpayer. One thing that you may or may not be aware of is that, especially in these times of social distancing, gift aid declaration forms can be made electronically and do not need a handwritten signature to be valid. So while a signed declaration is preferable, you can still sign up any new people to the Gift Aid scheme without having to meet or handle any physical paperwork. There have been a few changes that have been made to the Gift Aid and GASDS guidelines over the past few months, which are worth noting from a church finance point of view. The first thing to note is that payments made through a contactless machine are eligible for GASDS Gift Aid Small Donation Scheme, but remember it is not applicable on online donations or QR codes. A second point to note is that small donations collected over a number of weeks but handed over as a cumulative donation can now possibly be claimed through GASDS. For example, if a member of your congregation, we'll call her Margaret, normally gives £10 a week in her free will offering envelopes, which would ordinarily be eligible for GASDS, but now because of lockdown has given £100, which was supposed to represent her 10 donations over the past 10 weeks. A GASDS claim can be made on this bulk donation as it represents a regular offering over that 10 weeks. Another gift aid change that may be of interest to you is the rules around the purchase of event tickets which have had to be cancelled. For instance, if a member of your congregation, again we'll say Margaret, bought a ticket for an online afternoon tea that the church was holding, which was then cancelled, and Margaret was feeling very generous and said that instead of a refund, the church could just keep the money. This could now be claimed on gift aid, as it is now seen as a donation, as there is no exchange of goods or services. Likewise, if somebody had given a financial loan to your congregation, but then decided that they did not want either some or all of the repayments back, then the monies not repaid could have gift aid claimed on them, as they would now be seen as a monetary donation. Now, we have given you lots of information this evening about enabling giving and the technology that can be used for it. However, we would also like to draw your attention to our other resources. A narrative of generosity is our main resource, and it helps congregations explore their own stewardship journeys as a response to God's generosity. A narrative of generosity uses stories to create a more flexible and holistic approach to stewardship, looking at 12 themes, including money, time, and gifts, which are the themes we are all familiar with, but also how we steward our relationships with God and with each other, how we utilise our possessions, how we look after our volunteers and our youth, how we care for our minds and our bodies, and how we steward the earth and the vision that God has given us for his congregations and his community. And as your stewardship consultants, we would be more than happy to talk to you about how this might be run in your congregation. We can also assist your congregations in areas such as personal giving programs, legacy promotion, gift aid information, and fundraising and external grants. You may be aware that David Williams has recently been made the grant manager for the Church of Scotland, and the team hope to continue to work closely with him to help our congregation secure external grants and funds when needed. And of course, each of us are more than happy to talk to any of you, hopefully face to face at one point, but especially for the time being online. We can meet with individuals, teams, or even Kirk sessions to discuss stewardship matters. We are always happy to talk with you and to help you wherever you can, so please don't be shy about getting in touch with us. And there are several ways that you can do this. Firstly, if you or your congregation are on Facebook, you can like and follow the team's Facebook page, where we share up-to-date stewardship information, relevant spiritual content, and stories of different congregations as they travel on their own stewardship journeys. And we would love to connect with you on there. You can also email our team to our team email address, which is on screen now, stewardship@churchofscotland.org.uk. Or you can email each of us directly. And although each member of the team is the initial contact for several presbyteries, we work together and collaboratively. So feel free to reach out to any of us, and we will make sure that we help you in the best way possible. And hopefully we can start by helping you just now, as we are soon going to be heading into our Q&A session. So for now, I will hand back to Margot.
Thanks a lot, Ashley. Just before we go into our Q&A, I wonder, Dave, whether you would like to just say a few words to the folks here tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, Margot. So good evening, folks. My name is Dave Kendall, and I've been the Chief Officer for just over 16 months. Probably not the easiest start to my time with the church. I would like to say a huge thank you to everybody that has joined us tonight and for everything that you are all doing to support the work of the church in what has been such a very difficult and complex year in every part of our life. Yet we've still found all sorts of ways of making progress and continuing the mission and witness of the church. Thank you also to the stewardship team for organising tonight's events and all their hard work and the innovative thinking that they're doing. The team are here to help you on all aspects of giving and are all very friendly, approachable and extremely knowledgeable. You now all know what they look like too. It's always nice to put a face to the name. It is very daunting doing these webinars. There are usual technical hitches which the team have done well to navigate. At the start of my first webinar in the church to 1,000 people, the screen turned to floating triangles which I had to speak to for the next hour. So you can tell how that can be quite nerve-wracking. We would really appreciate it if you would share your digital giving experiences with us tonight, either through adding them to the Q&A or by sending them on to us so we can learn from them and share the good news stories with others. At this point, we'd like to invite you to ask your questions to the team through the Q&A function, and we look forward to having a lovely conversation with you over that. Over to you, Margot.
Thanks, Dave, very much. Just to remind folks, click on the balloon icon at the top of your screen, the one with the question mark in it, and then you'll see the Q&A open up to the right of your screen. Then you can type a question or a comment at the bottom right. We're not going to be able to answer every question tonight, but we shall do our very best. And Ashley is going to start with some of the questions. Thanks, Ashley.
And I have remembered to unmute myself. So apologies, that's what I get for reminding the rest of the team to do that at the start of the webinar. So we have had a couple of questions in already and more are coming in. So we will take our first one. And I think I will be giving this question over to Fiona to answer. It says, I am wondering if there is such a thing as an outdoors device which could be positioned outside the church. It would enable local people for a variety of reasons who do not attend the services to give some financial support quickly and easily. Fiona.
There, sorry, we're not very good at remembering to unmute ourselves. Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I'm not aware of a device that could sit outside. Perhaps there are one, perhaps some suppliers have produced a case or a cover. But one thing that congregations could use is the QR code, because they can come in poster form. So they could quite easily be laminated and go up on a notice board. So that's definitely one option. Back to you, Ashley.
Thank you very much. So another question that has come in is actually about the national donate button that we've got on the Church of Scotland website. And it is a query that someone has donated a £10 to their local congregation and it has not yet appeared about a week later in the person's bank account. Because of the setup of the online donate button and because we are trying to cater for every congregation, there is a bit of a slower process, especially if it is the first donation to a congregation. We need to make sure that we are sending it to the correct bank account, that we are going through the security process, and there is a little bit of a delay then in getting that to you, but anything that does go through the site will eventually get to the congregations. So we'll have a look at another question, and Here's a question that I think we will hand over to Margot. It says, what can I say to people who say that there are more worthy causes to be giving to at the moment?
Certainly, I would agree that I'm just talking about in my own life, I have pet causes because I have people who have certain illnesses or have died of certain illnesses in my life. We all have different passions in life, but I would say that as a member of the Church of Scotland, I've promised to give of my time, my talents and my money to the church, not only to the church, but through that to the work of Jesus Christ. And so I would say that for myself, that is my first priority. It's not an afterthought. It's budgeted into my monthly income and outgoings and other things. Now, at times, everyone's circumstances are different. And when I go out to congregations, I always say, all God is asking us to do is to think about our financial giving and prayerfully before him. And, you know, maybe because of bereavement or illness or some other situations, it's certain times in our lives, our giving to the church has to decrease. But what we're doing is, as Christians, is just to faithfully think about it and prayerfully give a relevant portion to God. Thank you. Don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Anyone else want to add into that? Is that Pauline? I think I'm seeing.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I suppose just in addition to that, in terms of supporters from out with the church, you know, the church does an amazing work, and there's been research recently about the value that's added to society by church volunteers, you know, not just on church work, but in all sorts of ways. You know, I think the church has really found new ways to serve its communities over the last year and has been innovative, and there's much to be thankful for, and there are a lot of good news stories out there about what churches are doing up and down the country, and I think we need to be better at maybe telling and sharing those good news stories to keep those supporters on board.
Perfect, thank you very much, Pauline. So we've been having lots of questions coming in about the contactless devices themselves, and one of them, which I will hand over to Fiona to answer, is can a single contactless terminal be used to direct donations to different funds in a church or to different churches within a linkage? For example, could it be used at a 9:30 service and at a different church at 12 noon with the funds going to different bank accounts?
Thanks, Ashley. I think there's probably a few questions in there. I'll do my best to answer most of them. When you set up an account to link to a contactless device, it is one account that you set up. So it would need to be directed into one bank account. Now, whether you then, it perhaps becomes complicated to do that if you're two different congregations, because obviously each one has their own bank account. There are some devices that offer the availability of different funds and different projects. Whether there are any where the donor can just choose there and then on the screen, I'm not sure, but I know if you were having a particular event one day, you could set the screen for that event and change it for the Sunday morning service, perhaps. And I do know if some of the online giving pages, they have a choice of funds. So when the person goes in, they can choose which fund they want to donate to. So that's perhaps an option as well. It probably needs a more detailed answer than that, but I hope that's okay for tonight.
Thank you, Fiona. Someone has written about their experience of using one of the devices themselves, and they've said that it is worth noting that if using a SumUp device, you can also link this to the Give a Little app, which is a free service which has a nice user interface. So that's a really helpful thing to know. If any of you do have experience with using digital technology to enable giving in your congregation, we would love to hear about your experience, so please add it into the chat. We've got a question here about the narrative of generosity. Pauline, you might want to answer this one. It says, is the narrative of generosity available in a leaflet that could be sent out or in a text that could be included in a church newsletter?
Thanks, Ashley. We could certainly send you some material which you could print out locally. We have PowerPoint slides that could be used, and we could produce a leaflet which you could print out, but at the moment we don't have it in a printed out version. It's on the Church of Scotland website, and it's actually going to be available soon on the Resourcing Mission website in their shop facility. So the kind of PowerPoint slides are available, and actually this resource is about engaging people in conversation. So the resource that we have is about prompting people with questions about a whole life of stewardship, whether that be about money and their giving to God financially, or whether that be about how they steward their volunteers, which is really important. But it's really all about getting people talking. But if you specifically need the resource printed out, then contact us via the email address and we can arrange for that to happen.
Thanks very much, Pauline. We've had a couple of questions coming in about gift aid and GADS, in particularly about the cumulative donation, and asking if there's a HMRC reference document or other documentation which clarifies that situation. And there is, it's on their website. I don't have it off the top of my head, but that is something that we can put in the information that we give out at the end after the event, and we will put that in. So the same rules apply. So if it would have been eligible, if the amount would have been eligible for GADS, then that amount within the cumulative donation is applicable there. Okay, let's go for another question. Has the contactless limit not increased to £100? Fiona, I think we'll hand this one over to you.
Almost forgot to unmute there again. Thanks, Ashley. I think there was something in the Chancellor's budget about that £100 limit, but that I think is going to be later in the year. At the moment it's 45, unless if you're using, I think, Android or Apple Pay, I think you can have a higher limit. I think that's right. Does anyone want to add anything to that? No, apparently not. Okay, I'll hand back to Ashley.
You've answered that one perfectly for us, Fiona. Thank you very much. Another question has come in, and Margot, you might want to take this one. It asks, do we have a policy on legacy campaigns?
We can give you suggestions and advice on legacy campaigns, yes. I'm not sure what they mean exactly by a policy, but we have run several campaigns which, the thrust is legacies. So again, I would say contact us we can meet with you or your, a Kirk session, or just treasurers and or your minister, and talk about this. It's a very sensitive issue. Pauline is waving at me. Did you want to say something more on that, Pauline? Yeah. So over to Pauline, please, Ashley.
What we do encourage is Kirk sessions to have a policy for their own congregation, so that helps promote legacy giving. If people know that when they leave a gift to the church in their will, that it's going to be used for special work, maybe work that wouldn't be afforded otherwise, or isn't going to just go into paying the bills, that can be a real encouragement to people to leave a gift in their wills. So on the Church of Scotland website, on the Stewardship page, if you do a search for legacies, there's a helpful document to help Kirk sessions with that kind of discussion.
Thank you very much, Pauline. We've got another question coming in from Glenn in Fife, and it says, do you recommend or encourage the use of PayPal giving direct through the Church of Scotland website for congregations? So again, our national donate button is there and available for all congregations to use. We do encourage congregations to try and set up their own one if possible, but of course if that is not possible for you, then of course use the national button to its fullest extent as possible. Does anyone else want to add anything in about the national button? Nope. Okay, we'll move on. I will give this one over to Pauline, I think. John asks, would you support the view that we will never go back to the mix of giving methods that existed pre-COVID? For example, digital methods will continue to grow in importance rather than physical money.
I mean, I think things are heading in that direction, but I think we also have to be aware that for many church members, cash is how they still, do their monetary transactions. I don't know if any of you saw the news last week with the new Amazon supermarket in London, a completely cashless supermarket now. You don't even need you don't even need to go to a till. You just walk in, gather up what you need, walk out again, and you're charged automatically. So, all the signs would indicate that society is moving towards, being a cashless society, and we've got to keep up with that. And I think we need to enable giving in a range of ways, but at the moment there will still be those who want to give you their envelopes with cash, and we can accommodate that as well.
Thank you very much, Pauline. We've had another comment that says, thank you for the presentation. Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming along. And it says, could you present to our Kirk sessions? And yes, we would love to come along and speak to your Kirk sessions or your stewardship or finance teams, talk to you and see how we can move enabling giving forward in your congregation. So please feel free to get in contact with us after this event on our email or on our Facebook. There's another question that Fiona, I will bat over to you. You mentioned GASDS not being available for online giving. Can I clarify that if that includes standing orders where this has replaced the free will offering envelopes once used?
Done it again. Yeah, so the only things that are eligible for the gifted small donation scheme are cash, obviously within the £30 limit, cash and contactless donations. So regardless if a cheque or a standing order has been set up to replace what would have been a cash donation, that can't be included any longer. It's just cash and contactless donations.
Thank you very much. And I think I might come straight back to you, Fiona, actually, so keep your mic on. Gordon has asked, what causes a range of transaction fees with the same supplier?
Thanks, Gordon, for your question. I think it depends which, some of them you can choose which app, well, not the provider of the app, but whether it's a standard app or a premium app. So, for example, the premium app usually will give you more benefits, and you're probably able to personalize the screen more, maybe add a video or a photo and personalize your particular page more. That's one of the main things. Sometimes the standard one doesn't allow you to collect gift aid information, whereas the premium one does. It can also relate to how much donations you're taking annually. Some of them are dependent on that as well.
Thank you very much. I'm always very impressed with the amount of knowledge that Fiona just has stored up in her head about all things contactless. John has also mentioned to us, he said, I have enabled Sum Up within our church together with Give a Little. Give a Little also allows you to create an online giving page. Once created, I've also created a QR code as a direct link to this, something that may be useful for others. Definitely that is something where you can create a QR code to take you to a page, so that's a completely different way of using QR codes. So thank you very much for sharing that. And that comes linked in with another question from somebody else about would you encourage using different methods together, and I think we kind of mentioned earlier that the more ways that we can enable people to give, the better. So if we can have online buttons, if we can have QR codes and digital devices, then that would be incredible. It's just finding what works best for your congregation. Margot, I'll send this one over to you. This one says, would it be appropriate for a church minister to briefly mention how to donate digitally during an online church service or in church when we are back out of lockdown restrictions?
I think it would be, I think it's always really beneficial if a minister talks about financial giving regularly, and he or she would really be helpful if they enabled that by talking about digital giving. I think it maybe takes a variety of people, not only the minister. Maybe you could, in a service, could have a wee story from someone who had found how easy it was, and maybe that would be useful as well. A variety of ways of doing it, variety of people, and especially if you're in the middle of a stewardship season on money, that would be so very useful.
Thank you very much for that, Margot. We have had a question from Keith that Fiona, I'll ask you to answer again. It says, for churches with no internet, can you get a card reader that logs payments and can be downloaded at a later date?
So the very simple answer to that is yes. However, there's also, if you don't have Wi-Fi, a lot of them use a roaming SIM card. So if you've got a mobile phone signal, that can be used through that as well. There's not every device will take payments offline, but some of them do. They'll take it offline, encrypt the details, and then as soon as you're connected again, they will process the donation.
Thank you, Fiona. So unfortunately, we're almost at the end of our time. We've got one quick question that we can squeeze in before I hand back over to Margot, and it is Ruth asking if they can put a link to the Church of Scotland donate button on their local church's website. Yes, you certainly can, and members of our IT team can help advise on how to do that. So if you want to send us an email after this event, we can then pass it on to the correct people. Can I just say thank you very much for all your questions. That went very quickly, and I will hand back over to Margot just now.
Thanks. Folks, we said we would stop at 2:15, so we're going to do that. Thank you for attending. Thanks to everyone who took part tonight, and especially those who behind the scenes were helping out, especially Fiona and Ashley there behind the scenes. Thanks, Pauline, for all your calm answers. And thanks, Anne and Leanne and Dave, for being here as well. We just pray that your congregations will be blessed and that you will be courageous enough to talk regularly about giving to God financially. Just want to say from all of us, cheerio, and I hope to contact you and speak with you all very soon. Please use us. Thank you. Good night.